By my clock, that is now 6:30, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Christopher Harrington. I am your Director of Public Works and Environmental Services for Fairfax County. Tonight, we are here to talk about and receive some feedback from you and answer any questions that you may have about a proposal under consideration by the county to modify how solid waste is managed for residential neighborhoods. And so our general run of show tonight, and so we'll open up with some comments by Dranesville District Supervisor Bierman. I have a brief presentation, and then we want to hear from you. And so we'll take your questions or comments. And so once we get into the Q&A portion of the meeting, we'll explain how that works, but folks will be muted until that time frame. So with that, let's go ahead and begin. Supervisor Bierman, is any opening remarks or anything that you would like to add, please, sir?
Thank you, Chris. I'm Jimmy Bierman, Dranesville District Supervisor. Thank you all for being here tonight. I asked Chris and Eric and Matt to come give this presentation about a proposal that the county is thinking about. This is, to be very clear, their proposal tonight, and they are supposed to be answering your questions, so kind of as they've been answering mine as I've gone through and been considering this. I recognize that it's generated a lot of community interest. We have gotten lots of letters to us, people asking us questions. I confess, at Jerry Connolly's funeral today, someone was lobbying me about this proposal, which honestly, Jerry, with his love of local government, probably was having a good chuckle looking down on us because he loves that. But I do want to be very clear, though, because there have been certain misconceptions about what's actually on the table. The truth is that the thing that is under consideration to be voted on later this year, almost certainly, frankly, not at the June meeting, is whether or not we will start a potential 5-year process to make this change in the county. It is not a done deal by any means. It is not something that we have fully decided, but state law is designed to give a 5-year notice to current incumbent haulers that we are even under consideration. And if we go through the process and decide that this isn't what we want to do, we don't have to do it. Going back to, admittedly, Jerry's on my mind, at the funeral today, when somebody was talking about Jerry's approach to public service. And it was mission, passion, and metrics. And that's the approach that I'm taking on this. What's the mission? The mission here is to try to make sure that we are providing an incredibly high quality customer service opportunity for all of our residents. That's mission number one. And mission number two is to make sure that we're leaving this county in a good place for our grandkids. Frankly, solid waste collection is one of the ways that we know that we can do things more environmentally sound ways versus non-environmentally sound ways. But fundamentally, this is about making sure that our customers get strong customer service and that you like what you've got. I am in the customer service business. Passion, if you can't tell, my passion is trying to listen to residents and listen to people in the community and figure out what's right and what's wrong and what we can do to make things better for them, make things better for you. And metrics, I want to know the metrics. I want to know whether this idea is even going to work. I want to know whether this idea is going to lead to increased costs. I can see both sides on this one. I've had some people who say they like the idea of more consistency, more opportunities because we have one general purchaser so that you don't have 3-4 trucks going through your neighborhood from 3 people who are using different services. I also hear from the other side, people say, I really like what I have and I like the way the free market has set this up and I get those choices and I'm worried that I'm not going to have as many choices. Believe me, I've heard all of the arguments in many directions. And that's in part why I asked the team here to come here tonight and to tell you all what they've been considering, what they're putting before the Board of Supervisors, to hear your questions about it as I consider this proposal and to hear from them as well. So with that, I'm actually going to shut up for the rest of the meeting. I know no politician is very good at being quiet, but I promise I will be, because I'm not answering questions tonight. The solid waste team is answering questions about their proposal, and I'll be sitting here taking notes along with you. So thank you very much. And with that, I'll turn it over to the Fairfax County team. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Bierman. We very much appreciate you hosting us here tonight and providing this opportunity for us to share some information and to answer some questions and hear from you. And so, as I mentioned before, my name is Christopher Harrington. I am your director of the Fairfax County Department of Public Works and Environmental Services. One of our business areas is managing solid waste for Fairfax County. I'm joined tonight with a few staff members that I want to recognize. First, Eric Forbes. He's one of our deputy directors over our solid waste business area. And we're also here with Matt Adams, who's a division director over our planning group within solid waste. And so, as I mentioned, I want to share a brief presentation. And so after the presentation, I'll go through how we'll handle questions and comments from you. But if you will allow me to please share my screen. Thank you. And Eric or Matt, can I just get a nod that you can see that? Okay, perfect. So let's just begin with some basics, right? So what are we talking about when you hear us say the words USD or Unified Sanitation District? So what is under consideration under a Unified Sanitary District? So what this new service model would look like if it was implemented here in Fairfax County would be that the county would assume control for all single-family residential trash collection services. How that would work is we don't have the capacity to serve everybody in the county. So right now with county staff, we only serve, or our contractors, we only serve about 10% of county single-family residences. So it would be a significant expansion and we don't have the people or the equipment to manage that. However, what we would do, just like what we have been doing for some of our newer customers, is we would competitively procure private trash collection companies to work under contract to the county to provide that service. And so to be very clear, the county would be, if this proposal was implemented, taking over single-family residential trash collection. The service would be provided by private companies managed directly by the county under contract to the county, procured by the county through a competitive low price process. It's entirely probable, in fact, we think it's the only way to go, that we would most likely divide the county into multiple areas. We don't know how many areas yet. It's still to be determined in further conversations with the community and the board, but each of those areas would be competitively bid to find a private sector partner who would provide those services. I want to be really clear though, your customer service contact would be the county. So if you have a problem with the trash service, if you have questions about the trash service, if you want to modify your trash service, your bill, all of that would be done by the county. So we would be your point of contact and we would be managing those individual private collection contracts in those service areas. Really critical to this discussion, however, is that Virginia law requires the county to provide at least 5 years of advance notice before we could actually implement this process. And so keep in mind, you're going to be hear me talk about that 5-year waiting period throughout my presentation tonight. So why would we even begin to move into this new collection model 5 years out into the future if we decided to take this step? What is the problem or problems that we're trying to solve for? And so based on what we've heard in conversations with the community and from the Board of Supervisors, without the Unified Sanitary District, without the USD model, we have no ability, just like we have no ability today, to limit the number of private trash collection companies operating in any given neighborhood within Fairfax County. We also don't have the ability, the regulatory authority to regulate the price that the private sector charges you for your trash service. We also don't have the ability to compel trash collection companies to collect certain types of commodities that would be necessary for us to achieve the community's sustainability goals for residential trash service. And so through our community-wide energy and climate action plan developed by the community and adopted by the Board of Supervisors, there are goals set for how we would more sustainably manage trash. On the residential side, without new authority, without the USD model implemented at least after a 5-year waiting period, we don't have the ability to do anything beyond what we're doing today to resolve these issues. To start that process, Virginia law also requires us to have a public hearing. And so what has been scheduled for June 24th, the purpose of that public hearing is for the Board of Supervisors to hear feedback from the public on the advisability of moving into this unified sanitary district model. Again, keep in mind that nothing can happen until at least 5 years after the board makes the necessary findings and has completed that 5-year waiting period. If the board voted to move ahead with the USD model, one, there is no commitment for the county to take any further action. So a vote to start the 5-year waiting period is that and only that. It says that we want to take the next steps in planning how to solve for those problems I mentioned earlier, that we would work with the community over the next 5 years to develop those plans, and then we would start implementing them not sooner than 5 years into the future. Throughout that process, if for any reason the board says that we're not moving in the right direction, again, we are under no commitment, regardless of what happens on the June 24th hearing, to actually implement the USDs. So let's be really clear what the choice for the board is on June 24th. A no to USDs means we are status quo, no changes for at least the next 5 years. So that means the county will not have any new authority to limit the number of companies operating in your neighborhood, to regulate the price you pay for trash collection, or to achieve the community's established sustainability goals for residential service. Now, on the flip side, if the board does vote yes to USDs, then that means, again, not sooner than 5 years, the county would have new authority, new options to, if we so choose, limit the number of private trash trucks operating in your neighborhoods, regulate the cost of trash service and the services to be provided, and we would be able to start achieving the community sustainability goals for residential collection. So that's the only thing that is before the board right now is, do we want to start the 5-year clock to have more options for how we would manage solid waste 5 years into the future? I know you have lots of questions about the types of services to be provided, and we're going to talk about those briefly, but what that actual service looks like with something that we would develop in coordination with the community over the next 5 years if we take this next step on our journey. Again, I can tell you for certain that if the board implemented the USDs after waiting 5 years from the public hearing, so not sooner than the year 2030, then in those new USD areas served by the county, we would obviously provide trash recycling and yard waste services. The other types of services, and we have analyzed in partnership with our expert consultants, the potential services that could be provided to achieve the community's sustainability goals, could include variable pricing based on the size of your trash cart. It could include new types of collection for bulk items, for special items. It could include food scrap collection, because that's a significant proportion of what is going to incineration from our residential waste stream today. It could include new, more convenient drop-off locations distributed around the county for hard to recycle items or for household hazardous waste, so it would be more convenient for you to bring things that you can't put in the bins at curbside. And important provisions like how would the county handle requests for folks who want to opt out of the Unified Sanitary Districts into the future. Those are all still to be determined. And so again, the only question is, do we want more authority for how we manage solid waste in Fairfax County 5 years from June 24th, or do we not? If we do, then we figure out, in collaboration with the community, all of these other questions about the types of services to be provided. We know, we've certainly heard through the extensive public engagement that we have done, as well as outreach from some of the folks here on this call, that there are concerns about this process. There are concerns about the cost. I cannot tell you definitively what the cost of service would be in the new USD model. It's 5 years out into the future. Those contracts have not been competitively procured, and we don't know the full list of services to be provided yet. What we anticipate, and certainly what we're advised by our expert consultants who've looked at this in implementation in other parts of the United States, and certainly what we see in our neighboring Arlington County, who has a similar model, is that it does lower prices. If you think about it, the county would be negotiating in bulk for all single family residential customers to be able to get the best prices that an individual may not be able to get on their own. Also, by having control on a countywide basis, it enables us to maximize the efficiency of the system. Basically, we can divide up the county into specific geographic areas. I can't tell you the number of geographic areas yet because we haven't done that specific analysis, but it would enable us to divide up the county into like areas, which then maximizes the time that, or maximizes the density, right, for which collection services would be provided, which means it maximizes the efficiency, which then lowers the cost to provide the service. So we think that the cost would be lower under the USD model for the average Fairfax County resident if implemented 5 years into the future for comparable service to what generally is provided today. There's been concerns about increasing the number of county staff. Remember, we only serve 10% of the county today, and we're talking about serving 100% of the county for residential services. So we absolutely will need more people, even though we are contracting out that service, because we will need people to help us with managing those contracts, making sure that we are inspecting those private haulers operating under contract to the county and enforcing the provisions that we would be putting into those contracts correctly. And we have a lot of education to do to help people navigate through this new system. No existing county collection employees would be dismissed as a result of this. We need more people than we have today. So what we want to do, if we implement this model, again, not sooner than 5 years into the future, is as we start to staff up those zero waste centers, or as we start to find new opportunities for these employees, we would be transitioning. So no existing county employees are fired or dismissed from employment. We're actually looking to add to our workforce to help us manage what is a substantial increase in the number of customers that we would be managing. How are we going to pay for it? We've heard concerns from you about impacts to your property taxes. Trash collection is not funded by your property taxes. So we are a fee for service. The cost of providing trash collection services to our customers today determines the price that we charge our customers, and it would be the same into the future. Fundamentally, that cost would depend on the types of services that the Board of Supervisors and the community want us to include in the new USD model 5 years into the future if we go that way. It is not coming off your property tax bill. We have also proposed a new zero waste fee. It would begin not sooner than fiscal year 2027. It would require approval from the Board of Supervisors. That would enable us to have a funding stream that we don't have today to be able to start to build and permit and operate things like those more convenient zero waste centers. The potential fee, again, we don't know what it would look like. It would depend on when it was implemented and what the specific provisions are. But our initial estimates are it would be about the cost of a dog license. So about $12 per house per year for us to be able to start standing up those more convenient options and to help us plan for all of the other changes that would be coming if we go down the pathway of implementing residential USDs. There are concerns about the fact that you would no longer be able as an individual to choose your trash provider. That's true. Under the USD model, the county would be the provider of your trash service. Now we would go and competitively procure, so there's still competition. We're just doing it in terms of doing the work for you to procure those contracts rather than you having to make do your own work to procure your own trash collector. But it is something that you would no longer be able to choose your own trash protector. Now you could pay for county service and pay for additional services from a residential trash collector if that's what you choose to do. But you would change if we go down this pathway 5 years from now from how you choose your trash provider today. We've certainly heard and seen communications about what the impacts would be to local trash collectors. Keep in mind, the contracts would be competitively bid. It is absolutely possible for us to include special considerations as part of the procurement for local businesses or for disadvantaged businesses, consistent with what we're allowed to do under Virginia law. And we hope that our local businesses stay engaged, continue serving their customers if we implement this plan to help us develop the plan over the next 5 years. We have been serving new county trash customers by procuring contract collection services from the private sector already. And both big companies and local small companies have won those bids. So I'm not sure that it is a known fact, I don't know how you could prove it, that only big companies, only national or non-local companies would potentially win contracts that we haven't even developed yet, that are 5 years out into the future. We've certainly heard concerns about loss of service, change in the frequency with which your trash is collected today. I can't tell you exactly what the services would be under the USD model. Certainly what we would be recommending, as we have presented to the board and consistent with the community sustainability goals, we would be recommending new services. So from our perspective, we think that this would be more convenient in the sense that you would be getting curbside collection services that you don't receive today, most likely, for things like food scraps. We think that that's an important part of the waste stream for some that could be redirected for more beneficial purposes. But again, the specific services to be provided have not yet been determined. That's all that we have for you. We do encourage you to please visit our website. We are adding new information. There is you can use the QR code if you hold your phone camera up to the screen. It'll take you to our website. And we will, sorry, that's not a link that you can see, but we can provide that as well. And so I'm going to leave this up there for folks if you want to visit our website for more information, which we encourage you to please do now and to please continue visiting going forward. As I mentioned right now, we have advertised a public hearing to occur on June 24th, 2025. It would occur not sooner than 4 p.m. It would be held in the Board of Supervisors auditorium here at Government Center, 12,000 Government Center Parkway, here in Fairfax County. And we certainly invite you to reach out and share information with us in this meeting, or feel free to come to the public hearing on June 24th. With that, we're going to move into the question and comment period of our meeting. We have lots of folks here, so I'm going to ask that you please keep your comments direct or your questions straightforward so that we make sure that everybody who has an interest in sharing feedback with us has the opportunity. We are here gathered together as a community, so I'm going to ask us to please be respectful and professional and polite with our other community members so that we are not offending anyone and that everyone has an opportunity to be heard and hear. If you would please use the raise hand function that you can find if you're on your computer. It'll have a icon of a hand. If you click that, we'll go in order, we'll unmute you and recognize you, and then you'll have an opportunity to share feedback with us. You're welcome to ask us a question, and we're certainly going to do our best to answer. And so with that, Katie, do you want to unmute our first caller?
Yes, Bill Dank, you should have, excuse me, access now.
Bill, can you unmute? Can you speak?
Hi,
we can hear you.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Bill.
Where's that beep?
I'm not sure. It looks like you and I are the only ones unmuted, and I am on a mic. So.
Oh, okay. Let me ask my question. Yeah, I guess.
Hey, Chris, ask him if he has two computers on at one time.
Yes, sir. Bill, do you have a phone connected and a computer, or?
No, I haven't been able to get the computer because I didn't know we were using.
If you can.
Hey, mute him and then have somebody call him.
We lost. Okay, so I think Bill will come back. Katie, can you unmute Mr. Lemaster, please? Philip, you should have the ability to unmute now. Thank you.
Hey, can you hear me?
We can. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, so I just wanted to ask, how do residents get county trash service today? And then I have a follow-up question.
Excellent question. Eric? Eric, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah,
yes.
We can hear you, Matt.
Okay, so how residents get their trash collection today, or how they go about it, is through the petition process, where the community gets together and they meet a number of signatures required to move forward for a board item for them to petition for the service.
Okay.
So
And my follow-up question is why can't we do something like that to give the rest of the people more choice? So like people who feel disadvantaged, like I remember I spoke to excuse me, um Supervisor Bierman, and he said that he got county service and got a much better deal on his service because his neighborhood got together and then petitioned to do that. They could do that, right? I mean, isn't that could be a more reasonable option to give the rest of the people who want their private hauler more choice, and then people who just are fed up with having too many trucks or who would just prefer a county service, and that's fine. They could potentially do something like that, right? Wouldn't that be like a good reasonable solution?
You're absolutely right that residents today have the ability to petition Fairfax County to create a sanitary district just for their neighborhood. It does require a process by which they have to reach out to us, develop the petition materials, go and get signatures on the petition from at least the majority of folks in the contiguous area to be served. Then it comes through the process by which then, as Matt mentioned, the board would create a new sanitary district. The proposal, the Unified Sanitary District, is to do this for all residents. So there are both options available for us to either take over service on a countywide basis under the USD proposal on the table, or if the vote is no, not to move forward with USDs, then that would be the only option, as we just mentioned, the petition process for residents to receive county service. So you're correct.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there for everyone to hear in case I mean, it is an option right now for people to do this if they want to. So.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for joining.
Yep.
We'll move to our next caller. And so Jennifer and Peter Falcone. Kate, if you could unmute them.
It worked.
We can hear you.
Thank you, sir. And thank you to Supervisor Bierman. I'm glad that you've reviewed a lot of the questions. This is like a multi-headed hydra, and all these tentacles that produce all these questions are overwhelming to most of us. But you've done a very good job of describing the authority and the 5-year displacement theory provided by the Virginia Code. And as we've written to Supervisor Bierman, the section that you're referring to is very specific. And in fact, one of the specifics that you haven't mentioned is that the county would be required to produce a written statement of findings. And, you know, I can't find it. So I'm wondering if it's available and how do we get a copy of it?
So just to clarify, great question. If you have more, hang on, because I think you said you had multiple questions there. But so just to be clear on the process. So at the public hearing, if it occurred on June 24th, and so staff, me, we would make a presentation to the board. Then the board would, as in public hearing, be able to hear from any interested speakers. Then the board would deliberate amongst themselves. And then if they chose to move ahead to initiate the 5-year waiting period, then they would adopt a resolution that would make those written findings. And so the draft of that resolution is not something that we would share in advance. It's something that they would make there at the public hearing. And so it's not something that we would generate in advance.
I get that, but I also get the impression in the statute, in the provisions, that it is something that the county would have to do before the process would begin. So I guess I'm interpreting it just a little bit differently. And while we're on the subject of the authorities that you're employing here, I'm wondering why, and we've also asked Supervisor Bierman for some insight on this. Why is the county not pursuing the existing authority in the county code that is very extensive and addresses virtually all of the areas of your concern regarding level of service, frequency of pickup, dissatisfaction by consumers, and all the actions that could be taken against CTOs, the people that pick up the trash, when they fail to do so? I think the county has done that in the past probably once against American when it failed to provide services and the county withheld or put them on probation. And why isn't the county pursuing more action in this area using the code or amending the code?
Excellent question. So keeping in mind, I think as you well described, we're a Dillon rule state, so our authority is only what we're enabled to do by the General Assembly and the Commonwealth of Virginia. Our legal analysis is maybe a little bit different than yours, and so we do enforce county code as it exists today. We do not believe that we have the legal authority to limit the number of private haulers operating in residential neighborhoods, collecting residential garbage and recyclable materials. We do not believe that we have the ability to regulate the price that a private hauler charges you for your residential service. And we also don't believe that we have the ability to compel the collection of certain commodities or the type of collection of certain commodities to achieve the community-wide climate or community-wide energy and climate action plan. So we disagree that we have the existing authority to be able to do this today.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Any other questions? Yeah, several. Okay. We'll move to our next caller, Katie. M. Pierce. Do you want to unmute M. Pierce?
Hold on, I want to make sure that, oh, okay, good.
There we go.
Down. Okay. Here you go.
Thank you. M. Pierce, you should be able to unmute yourself and share your feedback or ask us a question. We can't hear you. If you see a little microphone button on your screen that has a line through it, if you click on that, you should be able to unmute and speak. We'll give you a minute. M. Pierce, we cannot hear you if you can hear us. And we don't have the ability to unmute you. You have to unmute yourself.
Hey, Chris, why don't we go to the next caller and then we'll come back, okay?
Yes, sir, we will. Keep working on that, M. Pierce. And if, Katie, can we allow Mr. or David Biederman, I apologize if I mispronounced that.
No problem. Good evening. Thank you. So first of all, I want to thank Supervisor Bierman for holding this town hall, and thank you to the department for presenting the information. As several folks at the department know, my name is David Biederman. I'm the former executive director of the largest solid waste association in the United States. So I've been working on solid waste issues for about 28 years. And I have seen many local governments seek to impose this sort of arrangement in cities and counties throughout the country. And although there's no certainty about how it's going to turn out, some of the certainty is that there's going to be less competition. Certainly after the first contracts are let, after 2030, you'll be stuck with whoever the award winners are. And there will be very little incentive for those companies to provide high quality service because you're stuck with them. And more importantly, county residents are going to be stuck with them because they're not going to be able to switch the way they can currently. And if we're being honest, the ability to switch haulers keeps prices reasonable right now. If you're not happy with your price, and I was a Fairfax County resident in Vienna for 20-something years, I switched companies twice because the price went up too much. You will not have the ability to do that in the future unless there was something that I missed in the presentation. If the USD scheme is put in. And what's interesting is that the county keeps raising the disposal cost for getting rid of the garbage at the county facilities, which forces the haulers to raise their prices to cover that new cost. And in fact, the cost of disposal is about to go up by 13%, which is well above inflation. And so it's arguably disingenuous to talk about lower pricing, but the county is one of the principal reasons why it can cite or can make the claim that prices are going to go down. There was something in your presentation that I think Mr. Falcone touched on that I want to follow up on, if that's okay, about your authority to do certain things. And I want to focus on the achieve the sustainability goals. When I lived in Fairfax County, the county took glass out of curbside, along with other local governments in the state of, in Northern Virginia. I don't think it needed state authority to do that. Does the county believe it doesn't have the authority to require waste haulers as a condition of having a permit to collect food waste separately from the other three streams?
Do you want to finish with your other comments or questions, and I'll come back to that?
Actually, I'd like to hit the pause there and have that question answered, and then I'll move on, if you don't mind.
So I'm going to be very careful as a regulator of trash services to be telling you what I have and don't have the legal authority to do. But in consultation with the Office of the County Attorney, we do not believe that we have the authority to achieve the community's diversion goals as expressed in CCAP today. And so that would be a benefit if the county, for residential service, if the county moved forward with the USD model in 5 years.
So I'm a former lawyer, and you answered that question the way a lawyer would answer it, by not answering the question, sir. You didn't answer my question about food waste collection. You made a broader statement around the plan, but I understand why you did that. So the last point I want to make is something you actually referenced. You that there is the possibility that the smaller local companies could go out of business, but there's no assurance that that's going to happen, and that is in fact true. But based on my experience around the country, in the overwhelming majority of these situations, the small local companies are underbid by these larger companies that frankly own disposal facilities sometimes and have the ability to internalize the waste, and they tend to win the overwhelming majority of the agreements. And even if that price is a little bit lower at the very beginning, once they have the contract, they will have you'll have less choice in the future. And I guess my question is, because I should sum up this with a question, are all of these potential harms worth reducing truck traffic by 1 or 2 or 3 trucks in a given neighborhood on a given day?
So
I'm not sure, as a former county resident, that is the case.
Thank you, David. I appreciate you being here and sharing your perspective with us tonight. And so we took some notes, and obviously we're recording the meeting, so we've captured that. Just to respond to a couple of them, that's not the only benefit, is reducing the number of trash trucks on the neighborhoods. There are multiple benefits if the county pursues the USD model. I would note that at the same time that American, a very large company, was having difficulty in delivering services under individual contract to individual residential customers after COVID, they had no issues in delivering service in Arlington, our neighboring jurisdiction, which was contracted to them on a countywide basis under a similar franchise model. You certainly do address some of the concerns that we have in terms of the cost of providing our service under the current model. And that's one of the reasons why we are open to looking at new service delivery models. But I appreciate you sharing your perspective with us today. Thank you very much. And let's move to our next person. Just check in. M. Pierce, are you able to unmute yet? Okay, so then Katie, Doug Harbrecht. Doug Harbrecht, and I apologize if I mispronounced your name. You should be able to unmute and share your perspective or ask us a question now. Doug, we cannot hear you. If you can hear us, we need you to unmute so you can speak. If you click on the microphone button to unmute.
Doug, you know what it is? Yeah. Hi there. Can you hear me now?
We can. Thank you.
when you tell that Ned guy, tell him that it's the microphone. It's at the top. It's not in the frame itself that you're supposed to be featured in. It's at the top. So
Will
that's
do.
what I just. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Bierman and gentlemen, for being here tonight. We appreciate this feedback. I don't have so much of a question as I just want to put us on the radar screen. I know
Sure.
Supervisor Bierman knows all about us. I'm a board member of the Great Falls Park Out. We have we are. I see on your website that you don't want a one size fits all result from this effort, and that you're looking for successful models. Well, you look in Great Falls, you will find that the Great Falls Park Out is a successful model of what you would like to do in every way, shape, and form. It's providing a reliable, low-cost alternative to curbside commercial pickup here in Great Falls. It's been around since before World War II. The county used to run it, and got out. And when it got out of the business here in Great Falls of a collection in around 2000, year 2000, a community nonprofit was formed, and we have kept it going. And our mission is to reduce heavy truck traffic in our communities, winding byways and private roads. We have a unique situation out here. Supervisor Bierman is quite aware of it. Private roads are the devil for commercial pickup, and they causes all kinds of disputes. We have a lot of private roads in Great Falls. And not only that, but we highlight all of Fairfax County's best practices in solid waste disposal and recycling. We do that. Private carriers don't do that. We are doing that for you, for the county. We are telling people what the best practices are for Fairfax County. Every morning, every Saturday morning between 8 and noon, 320 households in Great Falls have access to a truck by American Disposal Services, both recycling and trash. The friendly professional crew from American Disposal does all the lifting. It's the largest block, single block of largest single trash commercial block in Great Falls. It's run by a nonprofit community. Now, McLean has one too. And what we're doing is we're solving unique community problems. Commercial carriers have a hard time servicing our communities. Heavy trucks can damage property of people living on private roads, especially. We provide a unique solution that already targets the goals set out by the county's proposed Unified Sanitation District plan. Please keep us in mind as you go through this process. I would urge you, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We have a very loyal and very dedicated core group here in Great Falls, large. Between 10 and 15% of all households in Great Falls are with the Great Falls Park Out. And we urge you, we just want to get on your radar screen and make sure you know where we're here, because we're doing good things and our goals are the same as yours. And I thank you.
Thank you, Doug, for joining us tonight. Thank you very much for sharing that information with the group. We are certainly very aware in Public Works about your unique situation. We appreciate your all's leadership and sustainability and working towards maximizing diversion from what actually is going into the trash. So thank you. As I mentioned, earlier in my presentation, some of those opt-out provisions are still something that we have to figure out. And so we do appreciate very much you sharing information about your unique situation. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
We'll move to our next caller. And so, Katie, if you wouldn't mind, please unmuting Ethel Pascal. And so, Ethel Pascal, if you would please unmute yourself, you're welcome to share any feedback that you have with us, questions or comments. Again, the mic button, MIC button, if you can unmute yourself at the top of the screen if you're on your computer. We'll give you a minute. We can't hear you. If you can hear us, we need you to unmute at the toolbar at the top of your screen. If you're on a computer, it's likely the mute button at the bottom of your screen if you're on a phone. Ethel, we'll leave you the ability to unmute yourself and let you keep working on that. Katie, let's go back to Bill Dink. Bill, you came back. Thank you for being patient. You're at the top of the line, but now you're back to join us. And so, Bill, you should be able to unmute. Let's see if we can hear you without the feedback this time.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Perfect.
I'm very sorry, but just a tip for the next time you do one of these, I don't think you mentioned anywhere here that you use Teams software. Most of us use Zoom on a regular basis, I think. So you need to make it clear. I kept trying to put in your ID number into Zoom and getting default. So
sorry about that.
Yeah, but thank you very much for doing this call. It's good to see Eric's face, as I've spoken to him on the phone, and just have a couple short questions. The 10% of the county you're currently serving is single-family detached homes. What is the average price you're charging Fairfax County residents, approximately?
So beginning in July, at the beginning of the new fiscal year, it will be $610 would be the cost for us to provide residential service. That is something that is more expensive than some of our regional neighbors, Arlington being a really great example that I think is charging, correct me if I'm wrong, Matt, $418, I think is the current cost of their service. And so just to provide some context, remember when I was talking about density equals efficiency in the trash collection business? And so our customers are scattered, from the western boundary of the county to the eastern boundary of the county. They are generally located in the eastern portion of the county. So what we have now, a huge contributor of that cost is we don't have the economy of scale of serving everyone. We have a very not dense network of customers, which means we spend a lot of time in transit. And so that is a key factor driving our costs. We do believe that under the USD model, if there's something that the board chose to implement, that after the 5-year waiting period, we do believe that those costs would come down because we would achieve efficiency savings that we don't have available to us today. But please, I interrupted you. Did you have another question or a comment?
Yeah,
there were more.
I have a couple more there.
Please.
I'm in Great Falls here on Seneca Road, and I'm paying $420 for recycling trash and yard debris. Obviously, our houses are much further apart, and it's less dense. Someone kind of mentioned there, I think the gentleman from the park out, it's been written, I'm sure you're monitoring social media. It certainly seems the county is trying to solve a problem that does not exist. And I think this was all given birth during the darkness of COVID shutdowns. And the whole CCAP operated back then and came up with these goals, which I'm sure the goals and parameters could be changed on CCAP. We're not locked into something. So I would suggest that there is not a likelihood prices will go down. Competition, I'm an old federal contractor, and the price control of Republic and Waste, what do we call West, the other company, they, as I understand it, they control the tipping for recycled materials. So there can be all sorts of transfer pricing going on. And since we don't have any independent audit or inspector general function in this county, I don't know how rigorous we're going to be able to be to see how they fool with their pricing. I also have a problem with this idea that you're going to reduce truck traffic on our roads. I find the school bus traffic much more annoying than the trash truck. It's a lot more frequent, it's a lot more diesel, and it's going every day, not once a week or twice a week. So I think it's a false argument to say you're going to reduce truck traffic unless the trucks are going to get hugely larger and carry more on every pickup. I think I will leave it there, except to say again, I would like an answer to what it would take to change the CCAP goals, who may not be very realistic at this point. And I will ask that you take that for action and answer it after this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate that perspective. Don't necessarily agree with you on all those points, but I really appreciate hearing from you. In terms of CCAP, so that was something developed by the county, by county staff with public input, and it is board adopted policy. So it would require a similar process, I would imagine, to change CCAP. We do not in Public Works control that process. Our good friends in the Office of Environmental and Energy Coordination are sort of the staff keepers of the county CCAP plan, but I will relay that feedback to my good friend, the director of that department, John Morrill. So thank you, sir.
Yeah, I think Mr. Bierman needs to take a look at that. Maybe it's time the Board of Supervisors looked at those standards and say, maybe we need to readjust. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Let's see. So let's go to our next Dominica Lopez. Apologies if I mispronounced your name there. You should be able to unmute and share feedback or ask us a question. Cannot hear you if you can hear us. There should be a mute button at the top of your computer screen, a mic, M-I-C, with a line through it. They should be able to click, and then you would be able to unmute and share your thoughts with us. Okay, I can't hear you. And so Dominica Lopez will come back and check on you in a minute. Let's go to our next caller. So Charles Schwett, I apologize if I mispronounced your name, but Charles, you should be able to unmute and share your perspective with us now. Charles, you do have the ability to click on that microphone button at the top of your computer screen in the toolbar next to the camera icon. You should be able to unmute and then share your perspective with us. So let's go to, okay, let's try the phone number. We lost it.
This is
Hello?
this is Lindeen Patton from Great Falls.
Hi, please go ahead.
As background, like the other speaker, I served as, I not only worked for the fourth largest insurer in the world, which is a major insurer of haulers like Laidlaw and Waste Management, although many of them have captives. I also served for 20 years as the Chief Climate Product Officer for the fourth largest insurer in the world. I am a member of the Park Out. As a personal matter, I have absolutely no interest in the expansion of Fairfax County government. At this point, you have not exercised, in my opinion, your authorities to manage the issues that you claim to solve through this program. But it's very clear that there is a focus on getting to zero waste, which is fine, but there's no plan. You have absolutely not a shred of implementation. And I don't understand how, having lived in this county since 1993, we've gone from a point where we have a government that was transparent and that clearly outlined its implementation plans and intentions to a government that now says, well, we have a great policy, this is a great idea, we're going to do this zero waste, but absolutely no mechanism for implementation. As my first job in my career as a lawyer, I served as the Associate General Counsel for a teeny company called MCON. Why does that matter? Members of MCON started the recycling program in San Francisco. And that took decades and decades to make it work. It had economic problems. They couldn't figure out how to get this recycled. And I'm very, very concerned from a fiscal perspective and from an operational perspective. that while this is a lovely policy, there's not a shred of implementation, although there's lots of apparent line items to hire more people for jobs that PS are left not yet defined, and a very clear intention to begin to charge based on volume of disposal for residential customers, which in its very nature is regressive. And I just want to make sure that that gets noted in this policy, because it doesn't seem reasonable that a county takeover, which would eliminate capital competition and commercial market competition, would be in a position to implement regressive pricing. So my question to you is, how are you going to address the regressive pricing, and when are you going to actually have a plan that identifies how you're going to implement operationally this zero waste? Or do we just, as residents, have to agree with a promise, a hope, and a prayer that you're going to do it? Because I know this is not easy.
So thank you for the question. Let's make 3 points, and we'll make sure we answer those 2 questions. One, on the issue that you're raising in terms of the container-based, or the size of the container for your trash affecting the price that you pay. So this pay-as-you-throw is what some communities call it, has been used successfully in other jurisdictions. We've certainly aware of some challenges with implementing it in certain ways in other jurisdictions. So it's something that we're paying attention to. If you've watched any of the conversations we've had with the board's Environment Committee, if you go online to the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors websites, you can find the meeting archives there. You can also find them from our webpage. We've been very clear that we are concerned about the potential inequitable impacts on certain members of our community. We could include, as part of the system, discounts based on age, income, family size, other things in a pay-as-you-throw model, if that is something that we did pursue. The discount is for having a smaller container, right? So smaller families or folks who are doing more on their own to divert their waste could actually benefit. So we want to incentivize that, as well as provide a feedback mechanism if we were, that's the fundamental theory behind the pay-as-you-throw, to be implemented. However, keep in mind, I can't tell you how we would explicitly offset cost impacts to our more vulnerable residents, or to senior residents, or to families with larger size, or families of more people living in the same household, because those details are something that we would have to figure out with the community and with the Board of Supervisors if we want to start working towards having more authority for residential solid waste collection. We have, in our presentations to the board, laid out options for achieving some of the diversion goals that are specified in CCAP. So some of the community sustainability goals for finding better things to do with our trash than how we manage it today. However, implementing the USDs, if we chose to do that, is the fundamental basis for us to have the additional authority to start to make those changes, to start to regulate costs, to start to regulate the number of haulers operating in any given neighborhood, independent of any additional sustainability benefits that we would be able to implement later on. For us to spend more of your tax dollars developing a plan without knowing that that is the direction that we're going, I think is some of the challenge that we're facing. We've laid out options. We want to hear from the community and from the board. We want to know if this is something that we want to continue to have the option in 5 years to implement. We think it is more prudent, I'll say it this way, on the county staff side, I think it's more prudent for us to make sure that we do want to go down this pathway and then work with the community in a more pragmatic and prudent way to develop the steps for us to implement it. But right now, we're really hearing your concerns, getting your feedback and answering your questions. So I appreciate you joining us here today. I'm going to circle back, I think, John Hallisey, Citizens for Great Falls. Okay, can we unmute John? John, you should have.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. Thank you. Welcome.
Okay, thank you. I have pretty much a couple of questions about costs.
Please.
My information is that you had some sort of a consultant working with you to do some of the preliminary work that you're discussing with us tonight. Is that correct?
We did hire a consultant to evaluate options that would be available to us and kind of give us some guidance to some of the same questions that you're answering. So we have, I would think of it as more of we have identified options to achieve the sustainability goals in CCAP, but we haven't committed, the county has not committed to any specific combination of options or level of services I stated previously.
Okay, could you share with us what that study cost and whose budget that came out of?
It was funded from solid waste funds, and I don't have the cost off the top of my head. I'm sorry, but we can put it on the website.
Okay, so you did mention that you are going to have to hire additional people since you're only handling 10% right now, and you would be going, of course, to managing 100%. Do you have an estimate on what that additional personnel and what those numbers would look like? Are we talking, how many people are we talking about adding? And what's the estimate on what that would cost on an annual basis to those taxpayers?
Sure. So it would be about 24 positions as a net new increase to Public Works on the solid waste side to do some of the things that we talked about previously. I don't have that cost off the top of my head available for you, sorry, because it would be part of the costs associated with all the other services still to be determined. I just want to reiterate the cost of service. So what we charge you is what it costs us to be able to provide the service. So it's not something like your property taxes or anything else. It is a fee for service model for solid waste.
Okay, so you did also mention the possibility of opting out. So I'm concerned about people who, currently are using the, like the park out services and, that they would be potentially getting double dipped, where they would be paying, for the collection that they prefer, but then also mandated to pay to the county. How do we avoid that?
So as I mentioned before, we're very well aware of some of those concerns and some of the larger homeowner associations wanting to kind of go their own way. And so that would be how we would handle requests for who's in and who's out of the Unified Sanitary Districts into the future. If we go down this pathway is still to be determined. So I can't answer that question tonight. I'm sorry.
Okay, one last question.
Please.
So speaking of who is in and out of the Unified Sanitation District, what happens with incorporated towns like Herndon, Vienna, Clifton, that currently are doing their own thing? Are they mandated to join this, or are they excluded from this process?
So I'm going to look to Eric and Matt to chime in on this one. I don't know. Can we talk about, or can you all update us on where we may be on that one? Did we lose?
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Thank you, Eric.
Okay, great. Fantastic. My mic came back.
Wait, we lost you again.
Okay, let me try again. Is that better?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah,
that's better.
Okay, thank you. It's a great question. So cities and towns operate separately from our solid waste management plan, and they, as you in fact said, are responsible for their own waste services within those jurisdictions. So it's not foreseen that they would be rolled up into this. Now, Clifton might be a little different, but for the larger communities like City of Fairfax and Town of Herndon, they would be excluded.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Appreciate you being here. Let's see. I think our next person is going to be Lisa Schlecht. Okay, if Lisa could be given. Lisa, please.
Hi, everyone. First of all, thank you for coming to speak to us tonight and answer all of our many questions about this proposal. I understand that the county does not yet have a 5-year plan, but I was just curious if the Board of Supervisors voted to move forward with the option. What would be the plan starting in July for, say, the next year? Like, what can the community expect in terms of you reaching out for feedback on services or anything else that you can share with us?
No, that's a fantastic question. And so we have some questions that we want to ask the board to sort of understand their preference based on all of the feedback they've been getting from their constituents. We have been engaged with the community throughout this process. So we've had a survey, we've been reaching out on social media to try to get people to come to the website. We've had focus groups. And so we would continue our engagement with the public to start to understand some of the trade-offs that we're talking about here today, right? So what are the services that we want to provide? What are the key considerations? What are our concerns about pay-as-you-throw? So if the board were to initiate the 5-year process, the 5-year waiting period after the June 24th hearing, then Public Works would come back to the community to start asking some of these questions and developing proposals. Some of the hard questions that y'all are asking that I don't have an answer for today, we would start developing proposals that then we can start talking about more specifics. I want to be really clear though, and I said it before and I apologize for being repetitive, but just because if the board were to vote on initiating the 5-year waiting period, it does not commit us to taking any action. And so if it took us longer through a public process, if the board had questions that we needed more time to study, it doesn't mean that in 2030 we start this process. We only start the process once we have gone through 5 rounds at a minimum of board budget approval of us bringing forward our proposals, once we have gotten clarity from the board and the community about what we're going to do. So right now, we don't want to spend more of your money developing a plan without knowing kind of the general direction that we're going. And so that may not be a satisfactory answer, but it would be, but we would come back to the community to start asking these questions to understand how we can implement the system that maximizes our ability to meet everybody's needs.
Thank you. That's all.
Thank you very much for being here. I'm going to go back to or no, I guess we have some new callers. Let's go back to the top of the list just to check. So Doug Harbrecht. Katie, if we could unmute Doug. Doug, do you have another question or comment you wanted to share with us, please?
Gee, I'm sorry. For some reason, I just popped up in the queue. No, please go ahead. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to pause for Mr. Hill. Did you have anything you wanted to add?
I did not actually. My finger slipped and I hit the hand up. So hey, and you're doing a really good job, sir. So keep going.
Thank you. Let's go back. Ethel Pascal. So you should have the ability to unmute yourself if you want to share anything with us tonight. I just want to make sure you have that opportunity. And so if you're on your computer, there should be a mic, M-I-C button next to the camera button at the top of your screen in the toolbar. If you click that, we should be able to hear you. Sorry, Ethel, we cannot hear you, but if you find that button, please unmute yourself at any point and we'll come back. I'm going to check Dominica Lopez. Dominica Lopez, you should have the ability to unmute yourself if you wish. Okay. Katie, we'll just go down in order. Mr. Dink, Bill Dink, did you have anything else you wish to add, please?
I just wanted to make a comment after the remarks Lindeen made. We've had a problem here with the zoning at a local shopping center where they're not keeping the trash properly. But their complaint is that people dump personal trash in the dumpsters there. And I fear that going to a lower cost, smaller bin would encourage people to take the lower cost option, and that when they have construction debris or something else, they'll just go down and dump it at our commercial merchants, which would be another burden on our merchants. And I just wanted to get that out there.
We've gotten that concern previously. I appreciate you sharing that. Thank you, sir. I'm going to go back to Jennifer and Peter Falcone. You should have the ability to unmute if you want to add it. Sorry, Katie, we just switched them back.
Sorry
Jennifer,
about that.
Yeah, no worries. Jennifer, you can, please.
I'm unmuted now. Thank you so much. I wanted to go back to a couple of things.
Sure.
In a presentation that I watched recently on YouTube, it mentioned there was a chart that specified a, where are my notes here? A zero waste fee starting as early as 2026 and increasing each year after that, which generated a considerable amount of revenue. So my question again goes to the timeline. Supervisor Bierman indicated that there's a possibility that there may not be a vote. If I heard that correctly, I'll have to go back and listen again on 2024. Perhaps this will be discussed further if there's extensive commentary at the public hearing. But I have a concern about implementation of a zero trash fee, and then what happens if this plan with that revenue, and it seems to me your numbers are a little off. If we're talking about 400,000 customers in single family dwellings at $12 annually, and your number came out to 3,700,000 or something, my math was a little different if we're using the same figure. So maybe your figures are different. So what happens to the funds if you don't implement? And after you answer that, I'd like to make a comment about the statement of findings.
Sure. So the zero waste fee is a separate question. So the zero waste fee is not something that the board is going to decide upon on June 24th. If we were to add the new zero waste fee, it would have to be done through the annual budget process. And so the earliest we could do it, because the board has already approved the budget for fiscal year 26, would be in fiscal year 2027. What the fee would be is, I think we described earlier, right? It would enable us to start doing more to achieve the zero waste vision in CCAP than we have the ability to do today. So it would provide a dedicated funding stream for us to start adding things like the distributed zero waste centers that would be different than the purple cans that we have for glass, because it would be a more robust, secure facility to make sure that we have control of the material being brought to us. So it is a separate question. So it wouldn't be considered until at least a year from basically now, associated with the fiscal year 2027 budget. Eric, if I missed or misstated anything, you want to jump in on that, please do.
Thank you, Chris. I'll just take a moment. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Think of the zero waste fee as something that will help with convenience for collection. Like right now, our disposal facilities are located at the I-66 transfer station or I-95 landfill, which aren't really close to Great Falls, for instance, or McLean. So in the Dranesville area, I envision having something like almost like a park out, but for hard to recycle materials that aren't necessarily getting collected in those park out situations. Think electronic waste, household hazardous waste, things that we know are in the waste stream that we want to get out of the waste stream because they have higher environmental risk when they're in the trash or in the recycling. So just want to add that as some additional thought as those zero waste centers are rolled out. That's what the intent would be. Thank you for the question.
You're welcome. So going back to the previous question that my husband asked earlier regarding section 15.2-934, displacement of private waste companies, you talked about the legal opinion here, and I'd like the people on the call to be aware of the language of that, which has certain requirements that are very specific, and that state that no locality or location of localities shall displace without first, and there are 4 things that are required: holding one public hearing, seeking comment. We know that is taking place. Number 2, providing at least 45 days written notice, and I'm sure that has happened. Number 3, providing public notice of the hearing. So we're all very aware that those 3 things have been completed. But number 4 is very interesting, and it states that you must make a written finding of at least one of the following. And these are my questions. A, is adequate or sufficiently privately owned refuse collection and disposal services are not available? Well, we all know that we have adequate services available. Adequate is subjective.
B, the use of privately owned and operated services has substantially endangered the public health or created a public nuisance. I think that would be a stretch to say that that is a problem. C, privately owned services, although available, are not able to provide services in a reasonable and cost-efficient manner. We've had many people on the call state that they're happy with their service, or they've actually negotiated lower fees, et cetera. I know I pay a little more than Mr. Dank, but I pay significantly less than county-provided services. And the only reason why I pay a little bit more than Mr. Dank is that I actually contracted for an extra wheeled off container. So probably a waste of money since it very rarely is used, but occasionally I put out a lot of trash. But D is displacement is necessary to provide for the development or operation of a regional system of refuse collection or disposal for 2 or more localities. So my question here is specifically, does Fairfax County consider each and every area under this provision of the Code of Virginia a separate locality? Because under the Code of Virginia, a locality is defined as a county or a town. And is this the reason why you're combining services? So for instance, you're going to say you have satisfied this because you have the town of Herndon and you're going to make them comply? Or is it just the locality of Great Falls and the locality of McLean, et cetera? I know that that's a long question, but perhaps we can get that sort of opinion or back in writing in some place. But sure, when you go further, just one more thing, when you go further, it says after the findings required by this section, after the required findings, so a year, it says within a year, well, I'm sorry, not longer than 1 year after the final public hearing, the locality or combination of localities may proceed to take measures necessary, and they shall provide 5 years notice to the private company before they engage. So I think we have a little bit of a conflict here of when the clock actually will start on the 5-year plan. And I'd really like some clarification on that. Thank you.
Sure. One, I was following along at home with my handy dandy printed out version of 15.2.934. So I appreciate you reading that out for us. To the specific question, no, we're not considering the different areas of Fairfax County to be the different localities. And then I do want to make it very clear, because if you read that next sentence, a locality or combination of localities shall provide 5 years notice to a private company before the locality or combination of localities engages in the actual provision of the service that displaces the company. So the 5-year clock wouldn't begin until we make the necessary findings that you identified. I can't speak to the findings that the board would make. I'm not the Board of Supervisors. That would be something that they would do after they have the public hearing, if that's what they choose to do.
So thank you. So in my understanding of what you just said, the clock does not start on June 24th, because sometime between, and if there's another public hearing, it could take Fairfax County up to a year to publish some findings. It's the Code of Virginia. We all know it's confusing.
I'll tell you my understanding, and again, I'm the Director of Public Works, not an attorney, and I'm not making a legal determination, but the clock would, so the board would host a public hearing, as you well described by reading 15.2.934. If the board chose to move towards the Unified Sanitary District model that we've been talking about tonight, they would have to take an action. So they'd have to take a vote and make a written finding. That would start the 5-year waiting period, is my understanding. So it would be not sooner than 5 years from June 24th, 2025, if that's what the board chose to do, based on my understanding.
But you,
Hey,
okay.
Chris, that is to study, not to implement. Just make sure you're clear, to study.
Yes, sir. That's very clear. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
So the vote starts the study, but nowhere in here do we have a definitive date or except for within 1 year of the last public hearing, there must be some published finding.
And I'm to Mr. Hill's point, there are multiple years of budget approval, multiple years of us developing proposals for the community and the board to review and make determinations. So I can tell you it would be not sooner than 5 years, because we can't do it faster than 5 years. But I can't tell you how long it would take us to some of the comments we've gotten here tonight.
Final question. Would my correspondence for a little more definitive answer on that be directed to your department and CC to Mr. Hill or to the county attorney? Which is the best way to get the actual definitive answer on that timeline?
Well, you are always welcome to email myself or the department. If you need any, you're welcome to use the general account that you can find on our webpage. My email address is really easy. It's just my name. You can see it on the screen, Christopher.Harrington, HERRINGTON @fairfaxcounty.gov. But if you reach out to us and share your question, we're happy to coordinate that and attempt to provide you the written answer that the written answer to the question you're asking us.
Thank you again.
Of course. And so I'm going to look to Brandon. If you would like to unmute yourself and share a question or comment, please.
I think I just unmuted. Not sure if you can hear me.
We can hear you.
Okay, 2 quick questions. Supervisor Walkinshaw has stated that if this USD were to go forward, the county would end up providing and paying for all of the trash receptacles for residents. With 400,000 residents and each resident needing 3 containers, you're probably looking at about $100 per resident, even with economies of scale. Are there any insights of where this $40 million would come from to pay for this?
So we're a cost of service entity, and so it would have to be from a funding source, either in terms of what we already or the new zero waste fee, or be something that we would factor into our ultimate cost of service to be able to pay for the containers.
Okay. Second question, how does the county plan to sell the USD to residents of HOAs that receive twice a week service and are typically paying in the mid-20s for monthly service, when in reality their service level would probably be decreased and their rate of trash removal would be increased?
So fantastic question. I can't tell you that. One, I'm not in the selling business, I'm in the trash business. And so I'm here to provide public services as directed by the board and approved every year in the county's budget. And so I'm not trying to sell an idea, I'm trying to share factual information and follow the direction that we receive from the Board of Supervisors. I mentioned before, right? We've heard questions and concerns just like what you expressed, that some HOAs would like to go their own way. And so, who's in, who's out, what the opt-out provisions may look like in the future are still something that we have to determine in further conversations with the board and the community.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you. One last check on Dominica Lopez. If you're able to unmute yourself, we would love to hear from you. And we have a caller, so 703-447. If that's you, if those are the first, that's your area coded prefix and you want to unmute, please. We can hear you. You are unmuted if you're on the phone and your phone number starts 703-447. We cannot hear you, but you are showing as unmuted. You're showing as unmuted, caller on the phone with a number beginning 703-447. If you want to speak, we can't hear you though.
Oh, it says that I'm unmuted. Am I unmuted now?
We can hear you now.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay, technical difficulties. I have 3 items. 2 are comments and 1 is a question.
Please.
The first comment is, I believe that the park out system in Great Falls can serve as a regional collection facility, even though it's like a pop-up, right? Because it would only happen on Saturdays. But it certainly would serve as a regional collection facility for some of the things that you have identified. as problematic disposal concerns, whether it's batteries, computer materials, etc. The second comment that I have is that I believe that if as a matter of policy, you all are truly committed to recycling, that in your development of your operational implementation plan, with respect to the acquisition of containers for disposal, it would be an outrageous activity for you to buy new containers. If you choose to proceed with this process, you should recycle any existing containers that are owned by private haulers in that process. And to fail to do so, I think would be a breach of your own CCAP. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, you're right.
My final issue is item 3 is my question. One of the gentlemen who answered the question about who can opt out kind of fuzzed over this issue about Clifton being special. Given that Clifton and Great Falls are the only two similarly situated areas in terms of land use within Fairfax County, could you please articulate why it is that you dodged the issue about whether Clifton would be permitted to opt out? Because you clearly said that McLean and Herndon could do their own thing. What is it about Clifton that is so different, please? Thank you in advance.
Totally. One, completely agree with you on the suggestion about the recycling of containers. We would have to figure out the mechanics of that. We don't own those containers. Those are owned by the private companies. But yeah, that would be a great thing for us to think about. I want to be very clear. No opt-out provision has been determined, right? So the provision that is, or I'm sorry, the question before the board on June 24th is, do we want to move in this direction for all of Fairfax County? Now, we've heard concerns, as has been raised here tonight, that there are some neighborhoods within Fairfax County that are less dense or have unique circumstances. And so whether or not those areas would be allowed to opt out under the new model is still a question to be determined. So there isn't a differential treatment for anybody yet because we haven't gotten to that part of the process.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Doug, you're back. You should be able to unmute if you want to add, please.
Please, yeah, if I could follow up on that though, but what I did hear you say though is that certainly in circumstances like what we have in Great Falls with the park out, that you would have a more favorable view in that direction for instances of opt-out. I know you can't commit right now to that, but this is the kind of program that you would consider for opting out. Is that correct?
I think there are a lot of. Go ahead.
I'm already a member of Park Out, and I 100% support the concept of Park Out, and I think it's the right solution for Great Falls, which is very low density, and it's easy to use, and the guys know what they're doing.
To your question, sir, again, no decisions have been made about opt-out. I will commit to you that I certainly recognize the unique circumstance that, we are very well aware here in Public Works and in Solid Waste of the unique circumstance that exists there for the park out. Now, that's something that we have to think about. We need to have further conversations with the community and the board if the board chooses to go further down this pathway. So as you well stated, I can't commit to anything in that regard right now, but I certainly recognize that there are unique circumstances and something for us to be thinking about as we move forward in our proposal.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Thank you, Chris. Since I see that we're down to the last, all of the hands have been up and we're about to hit 8 o'clock. I said I wasn't going to talk much, and I really not going to. I just wanted to make one quick comment about Clifton versus Great Falls versus Herndon versus McLean. Actually, McLean is a census designated place. So is Great Falls. They don't have their own independent government. Herndon, on the other hand, has the distinction of being a town. It has its own town government. It has its own town public works. Clifton is kind of an interesting beast in one sense because it is it's a very tiny town. In fact, the only residents of Clifton, it's about 400 people. They don't have a full public works. They don't have a full town either. So, I just want to be careful on the distinctions. Clifton's a little bit different. It has its mayor, it has its town council. Great Falls doesn't have a mayor or a town council like Herndon does. They're literally different. How do I put it? Different units within Virginia government law, and that's what the distinctions are. And Clifton is so small. Herndon has a police department. Clifton doesn't have a police department. It's very unique the way that is. But with that, I just want to thank the team here for answering questions. I want to thank everybody who came tonight to offer their questions. I appreciate it. You are free to email my office, Dranesville BOS, at as in Board of Supervisors at fairfaxcounty.gov. And thank you very much for everybody who is on the call tonight. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Bierman. Thank you for everyone for joining us. Please visit our website if you'd like more information. We'll keep it updated, and please reach out to us if there's anything else that you would like to share with us. We're certainly would very much welcome your feedback.
Thank you.
Good job, Chris. We have more to do, so good job, buddy. All right.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everybody.
All right,
Have a good
guys.
night.
Thank you. Bye-bye.